So Xiaomi did a few launches recently, and arguably one of the most important for them is the 12 Pro. Now they do come out with an Ultra series phone sometime in the summer every year, so we can expect a 12 Ultra to drop in the near future. But for now, this is their flagship device, and it is fully loaded with specifications. But Xiaomi has done something that the company has never done, and they've sort of breached the price bracket. So now this is basically a premium device. Xiaomi wanted to segregate the Xiaomi brand and the Redmi brand, and they've really done that with their newer Xiaomi phones. If you go back into history, you'll see that almost all smartphone companies have done this. They've lured you in at a lower price bracket and then slowly increased prices over time to get you comfortable with the pricing. Apple did it with the first generation of the Apple iPhone, which was launched at $300 and change. So the first iPhone that I bought was only 16,000 Indian rupees. And then now you already know their prices. Samsung did this with their flagship S series devices, which the S2 I remember was somewhere in the 20,000 rupee price bracket. And now you know what the S22 is priced at. We've seen this with OnePlus devices as well, and now we are seeing this with Xiaomi, and in the future we'll see it with possibly more devices and more companies, because that is what the strategy is. As the company grows, as they hire more people, as they expand their business, as they start marketing, which Xiaomi was not doing earlier, their expenses grow. And as the expenses grow, they want to still continue with their 5% margin that they claim, but then the overall cost of building products, especially if you fare in the marketing expense, goes up, and hence the phones will become more and more expensive into the future. So that was a little bit of a rant on the pricing. So this is priced at 62,999 to begin with. So the base variant, if you get it, it is also available in a few colors. I have to say that the images that they share of the colors don't do it justice, because the colors actually look better in person. For example, this looks extremely purpley in their pictures, but in reality, it looks very subtle and is a very nice color. So this one's called the Opera Mauve, and it doesn't look as purpley as it does in the pictures. We've also got a Kosher Blue as well as a Noir Black. So if you want a more subtle look, you definitely want to go for the black. But this is a nice color. I would say that this will go well for any kind of person. I do like the camera ring as well, the camera frame, we should call it, or the camera bump. It's metallic and it has this sort of gold accent on it. It looks really nice. The overall look of the phone is extremely premium, and a few things stand out in this device. It's extremely comfortable to hold in the hand. You've got curved glass all over the place, and the design is also slightly more longish, so it's slightly narrow, and it is extremely well balanced. So the center of gravity of the phone makes the phone really comfortable to hold for extended periods of time. So they've done a good job with the design, and the overall form factor. The fit and finish of the device is really good. As far as build quality goes, we get a metal frame around the display. On the front, you get Corning Gorilla Glass Victus, and you still get Corning Gorilla Glass on the back, but it's not Victus. It's a previous version of the Gorilla Glass. They've done some cheeky designs with the speaker grills, so they do look like audio waveforms, although I'm not too sure if that has any impact, because I mean, it doesn't really look like a waveform. It looks more like a rolling pin perhaps. So sure, good job with that. You still get an infrared blaster, something that you probably don't see in flagship devices nowadays. It's a decently built phone. You do get a case inside the box. It's a clear case, one of those ones that if you leave outside for a while will turn yellow. So I would recommend that you get a nice silicone case or something like that. The display also doesn't come with a pre-applied screen protector. This is unusual for Xiaomi as well. So not only are they making things more expensive, they're getting rid of basic things as well. So the display is easily scratchable, and we managed to do it as well. So I would recommend getting a screen protector off the bat if you do decide to get this device for yourself. Now, let's talk about the display itself. It's a large 6.72-inch display, and it's got an LTPO panel. What you get is a 3200 by 1440 pixel resolution, which gives it about a 20:9 aspect ratio with 522 pixels per inch. 120 Hz of refresh with 480 Hz of touch sampling. This display is actually really good to look at whether you're looking at it indoors or outdoors. And you do have a really wide range of variable brightness in this as well. So 16,000 stops of brightness, so you can really pinpoint the brightness to a particular level to get the right comfort for you. The good thing about this is that while this is an AMOLED panel, it is a variable refresh rate panel as well. So it'll automatically bring down the refresh rate of the display to as low as 1 hertz. If you are doing something like reading text or whatever, it'll bring down the refresh rate because you don't need the display refreshing at that time. The phone also has a 360-degree ambient light sensor, so it'll automatically adjust the display for that. It's got a reading mode and a sunlight mode to boost up the brightness as well. It is a 1000 nits panel, which is a typical brightness, which means that in normal times you can go as much as 1000 nits, but you can also get up to 1500 nits at peak spots while watching HDR content. So it's a really nice display. The one flaw we found in the display is that between the glass and the actual display panel, there seems to be a gap. So if you look at it from an angle, it seems not only washed out, but also has a blue tint, which does not appear on the display if you look at it directly face on. So there is definitely a color shift when we look at the display at an angle, and specifically from the top side. Not something that you would ever do. You're not going to look at your phone like this. So it's definitely not going to affect most of the users. But it's definitely there on the device, and you should be aware of that. Xiaomi has installed MIUI 13, and this device comes with Android 12 out of the box. With that, they've also given some really cool wallpapers that animate through as you use them. They call them super wallpapers. They're basically animated wallpapers. You get 5 or 6 of those. They look cool on the device, and we've had them since we got the phone. It just makes for a better experience. The display itself does not curve into the sides, only the glass does. So you do get the effect of an edge display, but it's not really an edge display. In fact, there is no roll off in the display. It's completely black. So the part that goes into the curve, that's completely basically the bezel of the display, not the display itself. It's also rated for Dolby Vision. So any kind of HDR content, if you're going to be watching on this, it will give you that without any issues, and you should get really good colors and a really good experience from the display overall. As far as gaming is concerned, the touch response on the device is good. You also have a game booster, so you can do all your usual things like disable calls, give all the performance to the phone, and your gaming experience is really good. You can get Ultra HD gaming with extreme FPSs on Battlegrounds, and mostly all games look good. Touch response is good, and the phone didn't appear to heat up in any of our tests, but we'll talk more about that when we get to the performance aspect of the device. Now, the phone also does have speakers tuned by Harman Kardon, and hence the design on the speaker grill. These speakers are loud, almost as loud as iPhones, but they're not as well situated, so they're not as full range as the speakers on an iPhone, but they are loud and they sound great. Arguably, it falls in some of the best speakers that you can get on mobile devices, and that's something worth checking out if you do like to listen to audio and do like to watch movies directly on your device. It's also great for content consumption, so if you're somebody who likes to browse through social media networks, this is something that will really help you if you're looking at short video, long videos, whatever. If you're watching YouTube videos, the speakers on the device are good enough to enjoy that without any problems. So the phone has 3 50 megapixel cameras at the back. The primary camera, the wide camera, is a 1/1.28 inch sensor. So it's a fairly large sensor. You get a 1.22 micron pixel size and a 2.44 super pixel. So it gives you a sort of enhanced image. The main camera is pretty impressive, and some of the pictures that you'll get, whether you're taking them in proper light or in low light situations, you will be really satisfied with the result from the camera. The camera app also has continued to contain a lot of features, so you still get all of the effects and beautify modes, but if you just look at natural shots directly from the camera, they are processed and they do smoothen out the shots quite a lot. But there is a pro mode, and you can do raw photography as well, so if you want to customize the images as per your requirements, you do get that option in the camera app, as well as the camera is quite capable. Low light performance from this camera is also really impressive, and the good thing about the layout of the cameras is that all 3 cameras have the same megapixel. So if you are going in from a telephoto to an ultra wide to a wide, the resolution of the camera is the same, so the smoothing is the same, and the effects that the processor puts on the camera are the same as well. So you get a very similar image in various zoom ranges, allowing you to sort of get an effect like you do on, say, iPhones, where all 3 of the cameras are 12 megapixel cameras. The phone also has some really impressive AI modes, and some of the pictures that we took with that came out really well. Low light photography comes out good as well. You do have super video stabilization, and that works really well, but you need a lot of light, so you can only do it in extremely bright daylight. The minute you come to a low light environment, not only does the quality of the video degrade quite a lot, but you also get some jitters in the image stabilization, which can be bothersome. The sound pickup while capturing video is really impressive, and you do have a multi-microphone microphone pickup, so you can actually isolate what direction the sound is coming from. And in 4K, that looks good and it sounds good as well. Apart from that, you get your typical shooting modes, and in video you do get up to 8K video recording, but it is limited to 24 frames per second. I wouldn't recommend using this, especially if you're outside in the sunlight, because it will tend to heat up the device quite a lot. In some of the indoor testing we did, the phone didn't really get heated up with 8K video recording on, which is warm to the touch but not uncomfortable to hold in the hand. When you do use the super video stabilization mode, you do only get 1080p at 30 frames per second, so you are restricted to that resolution only if you do want a hyper stabilized video. And while it does look good, you lose out not only on the resolution, but you also lose out on the frame rate, which I think should have at least been 60 FPS. In an ideal world, I would like to see 4K video with hyper smoothing, because if you can capture 8K, you can actually capture 4K with hyper smoothing as well. And this processor is actually more than capable of handling it, but I guess they've limited it down due to the heat issues that this phone was facing earlier. The front camera also is a 32 megapixel shooter, and you do get all your usual suspects as far as imaging capabilities are concerned. So you get your standard shots with beautify modes, you also get portrait shots, and you can apply all sorts of filters. We found that the front camera is really poor in low light situations, and it struggles not only to get focus but also to get images. They also have that night shot mode, which tries to mimic what the iPhone does with night photography. And while it is good on the main camera, on the front camera, if your hand moves just a little bit, and my hand moves a lot because I do have shaky hands, you get really blurry images and then they don't look good at all. So use the front camera in good lighting and use the rear camera wherever you want, basically. So you do get a dual SIM tray, and the phone is available in two variants. So an 8GB with 256GB of storage, and a 12GB RAM variant with 256GB of storage. So irrespective of what variant you get, you only get 256GB of storage, and there is no micro SD card expandability, so that's a problem. The RAM does have virtualization as well, so you do get an additional 3GB of RAM, so making it a total of either 11 or 15GB of RAM, including the virtual RAM that you get on the device. So the phone has a Snapdragon Series 8 Gen 1 chip. This is a 4nm chip which goes up to 3 GHz. You do have 3 cores at 2.5 GHz and 4 cores at 1.8 GHz. You also get the Qualcomm Adreno 730 GPU, and combined they give you basically flagship performance. Initially, some of the units that were tested from the Chinese launch were tested to be really hot. In this case, in most of our tests, including charging at hyper speeds, we didn't find the phone crossing 41 degrees on the external side, which means that the internal temperature may be going high, but the heat is being dissipated through the aluminum or the alloy chassis that the phone has. And on the outside, it is warm to the touch, but still very comfortable to hold at a 41 degrees of peak that we tested. Xiaomi is achieving this with what they call their liquid cool technology. So they do have a vapor chamber, which is a pretty large vapor chamber for this device. And then they do have a stack of 3 graphite sheets that allow for the dissipation of the heat. And with that, you can see in our thermal tests that while there are some hot spots, the area around them also gets quite warm. And that's basically the graphite sheets working and dissipating heat in all directions, allowing for the phone to be more thermally efficient. There seems to be no restrictions as far as the performance is concerned. In comparison to the OnePlus 10 Pro, we found that in benchmarks, the phone actually performed slightly better, even though both of them use the same chip and have basically the same RAM and storage in our variants. The phone has a 4600 mAh battery and supports 120 watts of hypercharge from Xiaomi. The charger is included inside the box, and this phone can charge up really quickly. In fact, we struggled to drain the battery several times because of the kind of tests we were doing. But while charging it next to the OnePlus 10 Pro, which has an 80 watt charger, charging speeds, despite putting this in boost charge, in the initial phases are the same, but then this tries to sort of peak out somewhere in the 35 to 50 range, and then the speed increases for this for a limited time, and at that time this overtakes the OnePlus device. For what it's worth, this phone can fully charge in under 20 minutes, and that is impressive to say the least. But it's something that you won't be using throughout the life cycle of this phone. In fact, I feel that it is much of an overkill. And if you do decide to buy this phone, I would recommend that you do not charge at 120 watts at all times unless you need to. You do have the option to turn on boost charge, and that doesn't automatically happen. You do get a pop-up, you can turn it on. Otherwise, it will do an optimized charge for you based on your your usage. And as you use this device more, it will recommend optimized charging or boost charging as per your needs. The phone also does support 50 watts of wireless charging. So if you have the Xiaomi wireless charger, you can just simply plop it on there and it will support that. And then you also do have 10 watts of reverse wireless charging. A large chunk of the performance also comes out in your day-to-day performance, and the phone is super smooth through your daily activities. And because of the variable refresh rate on the display, you do not feel any kind of change, whether you're browsing through your user interface or the web or watching a video which was shot in a cinematic 24 FPS. The phone can go through all of those without you noticing and seamlessly switch between resolutions and frame rates, giving you a really smooth day-to-day experience. The UI, whether you're multitasking, jumping between applications, is much smoother, and because there is not a lot, or in fact not any bloatware on the device to begin with, you do get a cleaner UI as well. They still have the Get Apps app, which I absolutely hate, and they should have the ability to disable that or remove it, but they don't do that. And then you also do have that security app that a lot of people do not like. So that UI element remains, but then you do get your usual suspect from Xiaomi devices. So MIUI features obviously remain on this device. You can switch to dark mode, and navigation gestures or buttons, all of those features still remain. As far as connectivity is concerned, it does support 5G. So where and when it becomes available in India, this device will support it. And as far as Wi-Fi is concerned, this also does have the latest Wi-Fi 6E, which means that if you do have a Wi-Fi 6E routers, you can easily connect to the faster Wi-Fi standard if it is available with you as well. Those routers are also pretty expensive. So if you do end up buying this phone, I would highly recommend investing in one of those. So you can use those Wi-Fi features if you use things like Cast. Wi-Fi 6E is a much faster and smoother standard to do that. As far as the audio quality is concerned, the microphone pickup is great, and there's a good amount of noise cancellation in the background, and the pickup for audio as well as the earpiece is really impressive. So as far as calling is concerned, as far as everyday usage is concerned, this phone has really managed to show off its prowess. But the question remains, are you going to be spending 62,000 rupees to buy this device? That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not already part of Team iGyaan, and I'll see you in the next one. And we still have this guy to review as well. So we'll be back with this. See you in the next one. Now, don't blame me if the iPhone 14 launches for 2 lakh rupees, but that's where we are headed.